The pain was unbearable, yet somewhere in the corner of my mind a cruel thought echoed. Even now he didn't choose me. Darkness pulled at the edges of my vision. I closed my eyes, the laughter still on my lips as the world dissolved. The hospital betrayal. The first thing I heard was the rhythmic beeping. Slow, steady, cold. I opened my eyes to the harsh white of hospital lights. The sterile smell of antiseptic clung to the air, making it hard to breathe. My body felt heavy, numb, but then the pain came rushing back in a cruel wave, dragging a broken gasp from my lips. I looked down instinctively to the flatness of my stomach. My hands trembled as they pressed against the thin hospital gown, searching, pleading, empty. No, 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 no. My voice cracked, hoarse from crying, or maybe screaming. I couldn't remember. A nurse rushed to my side, gently pushing me back against the pillows. Please don't strain yourself. Tears blurred my sight. My baby, where's... Her eyes softened with pity, but her words cut deeper than any blade. I'm so sorry. We couldn't save him. The world collapsed around me. My child, the tiny life I had dreamt about, spoken to in quiet moments, promised protection, gone. A sob tore through me, shaking my whole body. My hand gripped the sheets, clawing as if I could drag the child back from whatever cruel void had stolen him. The door opened. Footsteps echoed, too familiar, too heavy. He stood there. My husband. I froze, torn between rage and desperate longing. A part of me screamed to reach for him, to beg him to say it wasn't true. Another part remembered the sight of him holding him, shielding the one who had pushed me. He approached slowly, guilt written across his face. He reached out, hesitant, trembling, but I flinched, turning away. His hand hovered in the air, then dropped uselessly. You should rest. Rest. My baby was dead, my body broken, my heart in pieces, and all he could say was rest? You held him. My voice cracked, a whisper jagged with disbelief. I was bleeding on the floor, and you... He shut his eyes, jaw tightening. He didn't mean it. The words slammed into me like a second fall. I stared, unable to believe. Didn't mean it. On it. My laughter broke out, harsh, bitter, soaked in tears. He shoved me down the stairs. His eyes darted away. You don't understand. He panicked. He was jealous. It was an accident. An accident. Everything inside me screamed, but my voice came out quiet, broken. Our baby is dead because of him. For the first time, his composure cracked. Pain flickered across his face, but still, he whispered, Please, don't provoke him anymore. He's fragile. Fragile. He called him fragile while I lay in a hospital bed with my womb empty and my heart shattered. Something inside me snapped. The love that had carried me through 5 years, through sacrifices, through silent forgiveness, withered in that instant. I see now. My voice was eerily calm, almost foreign to my own ears. It was never me. It was always him. He tried to speak, but I lifted a hand, silencing him. My tears dried, replaced by something colder than rage. Resolve. When I leave this bed, I whispered, I will never come back to you, not as your mate, not as your lover, not as your anything. His face paled, but I turned away, staring at the blank ceiling. If I looked at him a moment longer, my heart might betray me, begging for the scraps of love he no longer offered. The nurse came in again, gently adjusting my IV. She cast him a sharp glare, as if she too had seen enough. I didn't hear when he finally left. Maybe he walked out quietly, maybe he lingered. All I knew was that when the door clicked shut, a strange emptiness settled over me. The bed was cold, my arms were empty, my child was gone, and so was the man I once believed would always catch me when I fell. That night, I made a promise. I would heal, I would rise, and I would never allow myself to break for someone who had already chosen to let me fall. New start. The morning I left the hospital, the sky was gray. Not storm gray, not morning gray, just blank, as if even the heavens didn't know what to feel for me. My parents had come to fetch me. My mother's hands, calloused from years of care, held mine tightly. She didn't ask questions. She didn't cry. She simply walked with me, step by step, until I was safe in the back seat of their car. Home. Not the home I once built with him, but the small, familiar house of my childhood. A place that smelled of turmeric, warm rice, and old books. For the first time in years, I breathed freely, but freedom had a strange taste. It was bitter with loss. The first weeks blurred together. Days were filled with silence, nights with muffled sobs. I'd wake up reaching for a child that wasn't there, pressing my palm against the emptiness of my belly. Sometimes I thought I still felt tiny flutters, phantom kicks, mocking me in the quiet. My mother tried to distract me with chores, with food, with stories of neighbors and distant relatives. My father offered silent companionship, sitting beside me in the courtyard, smoking his pipe under the stars. He never asked about the marriage, never mentioned my husband's name. For that I was grateful. But grief is a shadow. It doesn't leave just because you change houses. One evening, when I finally dared to step outside for a walk, I heard laughter echoing from the village square. Children ran barefoot, chasing kites. Families gathered around street vendors selling roasted corn. Life was moving, vibrant, and stubborn, and I was still standing still. It was then I met him. A tall man, sleeves rolled up, carrying boxes from the back of a truck into a small shop newly built on the corner. His movements were efficient, strong, but not rushed. He greeted the children who ran past him with an easy smile, even handing one boy a candy from his pocket. He noticed me watching. His eyes, deep, steady, warm like earth after rain, met mine. For a moment I panicked, turning to leave, but his voice stopped me. Wait. I froze. He set the box down and walked over. His steps were unhurried, his gaze kind. You look pale. Are you new here? I shook my head faintly. I grew up here, just returned. He studied me for a heartbeat, then simply nodded. Welcome back, then. I'm Arav. A simple introduction, yet something about it eased the tightness in my chest. I gave my name, my voice didn't break this time. From then our paths crossed often. At first it was chance. At the market, at the temple, on the street. Then it became intention. He'd wave when he saw me, sometimes stopping to ask if I'd eaten, sometimes carrying my groceries without waiting for my refusal. He never pried, never asked about my past, never demanded explanations for the sadness he must have seen in my eyes. Instead, he offered presence, gentle, steady presence. One evening, when I was returning from the riverbank, I found him repairing the fence near my parents' house. You don't have to, I said quietly. He looked up, grinning slightly. I like fixing things. Something inside me cracked. Not with pain, but with a fragile, hesitant warmth. Fixing things. Could someone fix a heart, too? For the first time since that night, I laughed. A small laugh, broken, but real. He didn't comment on it. He just kept working, as if laughter was the most natural thing for me to do. And slowly, day by day, the shadow of grief loosened its grip. I wasn't healed. The scars still ached. I still woke up some nights trembling, memories dragging me back to the sound of bones hitting stairs, to the words, "Don't provoke him." But now, when I looked forward, there was a flicker of light, a possibility. Arav didn't reach for my wounds. He didn't try to erase them. He simply stood beside me, quietly showing me that life could start again. Regret. The mansion was silent. Once it had been filled with laughter, the clatter of shared meals, the quiet murmur of love. Now only shadows remained. He sat at the edge of the bed, fingers tangled in his hair, the scent of the Omega lover still clinging to the sheets. Once that scent had felt intoxicating, like temptation itself. Now it was suffocating. The room was too empty, too quiet. He had thought he wanted this, freedom from the weight of responsibility, from the quiet demands of a mate who asked for little but deserved everything. He had thought the other Omega's attention, his passion, his obsession would fill the void. But as days turned into weeks, the truth became impossible to ignore. It wasn't love. It was hunger. Possessive, consuming hunger that demanded more and more until he could barely breathe. The first crack came when he woke in the middle of the night, hand reaching instinctively to the other side of the bed. The space was cold, empty, his chest clenched, memory stabbing him. The way his true mate used to curl against him, soft breaths warming his skin. The way he used to whisper half-dreaming words, little confessions of love he had taken for granted. Now there was nothing. The second crack came when he found a box in the closet, small, wrapped carefully in faded paper. Inside, baby clothes, a tiny knitted cap so small it fit in his palm. His hands shook violently. He fell to his knees, pressing the cap against his lips. That night, that fall, the blood. The realization struck like thunder. It hadn't just been his mate he lost. It had been their child. Their child. The lover appeared in the doorway, frowning. "Why are you looking at that old stuff? Haven't you thrown it away yet?" Thrown it away. His chest tightened with rage, an emotion unfamiliar and bitter. He stood abruptly, shoving the box back into the closet as if hiding a wound. From that day, everything changed. The lover's voice grated on him, his touch burned-eyed, instead of soothed. Every time he tried to forget, memories of his mate haunted him. The soft smile, the warmth of his hands, the way he used to wait with dinner no matter how late he came home. And then, the image that never left him. Blood. On the floor, wide eyes filled with pain and betrayal. And still he had turned away. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. Nights became endless cycles of regret, mornings heavy with guilt. He began searching, calling mutual acquaintances, sending people to ask quietly. But his mate had disappeared without a trace. Each failure to find him twisted the knife deeper. Finally, one evening, he sat alone in the study, whiskey glass untouched at his side. His reflection in the mirror looked hollow, broken. Whispering into the emptiness, he confessed words too late. I chose wrong, and I lost everything. For the first time in years, tears slid down his face. Not for himself, not for his pride, but for the mate he had betrayed, and the child whose heartbeat he never got to hear. Regret was no longer a shadow. It was his prison. And somewhere far away, while he drowned in guilt, the one he had lost was beginning to smile again. Unexpected reunion. Months passed. Life had settled into something almost peaceful for me. Arav had become part of my routine, his easy smile at the market, his quiet presence when I sat by the river, his hands fixing the broken latch on our gate without asking. He didn't push, didn't pry. He simply existed beside me like a steady anchor in a storm that had nearly drowned me. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was dragging my body through days made of ash. I was breathing again. So when my childhood friend invited me to her wedding, I agreed. I told myself it was just a celebration, just a few hours of music and food. Nothing more. I dressed simply, cream kurta, nothing flashy. My mother beamed at me, relieved to see me step out with something like life in my eyes again. Arav even teased, Careful, you'll make the groom jealous. I laughed, a real laugh. The wedding was beautiful. Strings of marigold draped from every pillar, music filled the air, children ran about in new clothes, and the scent of sweet ladus clung to every corner. For a while I let myself sink into the joy, clapping to the beat of the dole, smiling at familiar faces. Until I saw him. Across the hall, by the entrance, he stood. My husband, no, ex-husband. The world stilled. He looked thinner, his once proud shoulders slouched, his eyes shadowed with something I had never seen in him before. Desperation. When his gaze found mine, the noise of the wedding faded. It was just us, staring across the distance of a crowded hall bound by years of love, betrayal, and blood. My chest tightened painfully. I turned away, but I heard his footsteps. He was coming closer. "Wait!" His voice cracked, raw. I froze. Arav, who had been chatting nearby, noticed immediately. His eyes narrowed slightly, scanning the man approaching me. My ex stopped a few feet away, breathless as though he had run a marathon just to stand there. His lips trembled, but his words tumbled out all the same. "I'm so—" reached 2 words. Too late. I forced myself to meet his gaze. "Sorry? You held him while I bled on the floor." His face twisted, guilt flooding every line. I didn't know. I wasn't thinking. I was blind. Please, believe me. I've searched for you everywhere. Stop! My voice shook, but not with weakness, with fury restrained for too long. You didn't lose me when you held him. You lost me the moment you chose him over our child. Gasps rippled through a few guests who overheard, but I didn't care. My vision blurred with unshed tears, but I wouldn't let them fall here. Not for him. Not anymore. He stepped forward, hands trembling. "Please, just give me a chance." But before he could touch me, Arav moved. He stepped between us, not aggressively, but firmly, his presence like a shield. "Enough," Arav said quietly, his voice steady as steel. "He doesn't owe you anything." My ex's eyes darted to him, rage and pain flickering together. "Who are you to stand between us?" Arav didn't flinch. "The one who sees his worth when you never did." The silence that followed was deafening. I stood there, torn open by the weight of memory and the warmth of the present. My ex's eyes begged for forgiveness, for another chance. But Arav's quiet strength grounded me. For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I took a shaky breath, stepping back. "I've made my choice. Don't look for me again." My ex's face crumpled, anguish spilling from him, but I turned away, letting Arav's steady presence guide me back into the celebration. The music swelled again, laughter filled the air, and though my heart still ached, I felt something shift. For the first time, I wasn't chained to the past. Part 6. Healing and Choices. The wedding night lingered in my mind long after the music faded. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of my childhood room, the echo of his voice. "I'm sorry," playing over and over. My chest twisted, not with longing, but with something heavier. Guilt, rage, regret, all tangled into one. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to erase every memory, every tender moment we once shared. But love is cruel. It doesn't vanish on command. It lingers like a wound that refuses to close. Yet even as I wrestled with those memories, another image refused to leave me. Arav, standing tall between us, steady, unwavering. His voice had been soft, but his words had struck like thunder. The one who sees his worth when you never did. No one had ever said that to me before. The next day, Arav came by as he always did, carrying a basket of vegetables from the market. He set it on the kitchen table and glanced at me. "You look tired," I forced a smile. "Didn't sleep much." He didn't press. Instead, he busied himself washing the tomatoes, his sleeves rolled up, forearms dusted with droplets of water. It was such an ordinary sight, and yet it made my heart ache with a different kind of longing, one that was calm, safe, unselfish. After a long silence, he spoke. "You don't have to tell me what happened last night. But if carrying it alone is too heavy—" He glanced at me, eyes gentle. "I'm here." My throat tightened, words clogged in my chest. Finally, I whispered, "He was there." Arav stilled, then nodded slowly. "I thought so." I laughed bitterly. "He begged for forgiveness, said he searched for me. But all I could see was blood. The way he held him, the way he let me fall." My voice cracked, but Arav didn't interrupt. He simply listened. "I hate him," I whispered. Then, softer, "But I hate that a part of me still remembers the man I loved." The silence stretched, heavy but not suffocating. Arav finally set the tomatoes down and turned to face me fully. "You don't have to decide today. Healing doesn't follow anyone's timetable. But remember this." His gaze locked with mine, unwavering. "You're not bound to him anymore. You're free to choose, not out of guilt, not out of habit, but out of what you deserve." My heart stuttered. I searched his face, wondering if I was imagining the warmth there. And then, softly, almost like he feared the weight of his own words, Arav added, "If someday you choose me, I'll never let you fall." The room went silent. My breath caught. He didn't wait for my reply. He simply smiled faintly, picked up the basket and left, leaving the air heavy with words unspoken. That night I sat by the window, staring at the stars. For the first time, my heart trembled, not only with grief, but with hope. But the past wasn't done with me yet. A few days later, I found a letter slipped under our gate. The handwriting was his, shaky, desperate. "Please meet me. Just once. I need to explain. I know I don't deserve it, but I can't live without trying." My hand trembled as I folded the paper. Two paths lay before me, one leading back into the ruins of what once was, the other toward something uncertain, but steady and warm. I didn't know which I was brave enough to choose. Not yet. But for the first time, the decision was mine. Revelation. The letter burned a hole in my pocket for 2 days. I told myself I wouldn't go, that I owed him nothing, that meeting him would only reopen wounds that had barely begun to scab over. But when night fell and silence pressed against the walls of my room, I found myself walking, fast, angry, toward the place he had written, an abandoned park. Once we had spent evenings here, sneaking away like children in love, whispering promises we thought would last forever. He was already there, standing beneath the broken streetlight, shoulders hunched, eyes wild like a man who hadn't slept in months. The moment he saw me, he dropped to his knees. "Please," he rasped, voice raw, "just hear me out once. If after tonight you want me gone forever, I'll disappear. But let me speak." I clenched my fists. My voice was ice. "Talk." He swallowed hard, words tumbling out in fragments. "That night, it wasn't me." My heart froze. "I swear on my life I never pushed you. I was holding him, yes, but I was trying to stop him." His eyes brimmed with tears. "It was her. She pushed you." My breath caught. "Her?" He nodded desperately. "She loved me. I was weak, I admit it. I didn't fight her enough. I let her stay in my life when I should have ended it. But when she saw us, she lost control. She shoved you. I—" His voice cracked. "I grabbed her, not out of love, but to stop her from running, to stop her from hurting you again." The world tilted beneath me. My heart thundered in my chest. "You expect me to believe this?" I whispered. He lifted his face, broken and pleading. "Believe me or not, but that's the truth. I searched for you. I begged her to confess. She vanished. And his voice shook, I never forgave myself for not protecting you, for letting you think I betrayed you. I staggered back a step, my mind screaming, memories unraveling. The shock on his face that night, the way his hands had clutched her arms, not in passion but in restraint. The split-second detail I had buried under rage. My chest heaved. Why didn't you tell me then? I tried. His voice broke. You wouldn't listen. You were bleeding, in pain, and you hated me. I thought I could explain later, but then you vanished. Tears blurred my vision. Rage, sorrow, and something dangerously close to forgiveness twisted inside me. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't. My voice shook. Even if it wasn't your hands that pushed me. You still let her exist between us. You still let me fall. He froze, lips parted. The truth hung heavy in the air. Yes, maybe he wasn't the one who pushed me. But his weakness had been the reason the push was possible, and suddenly I understood something. Even if the past wasn't exactly what I thought, even if he wasn't the villain I made him out to be, it didn't erase the fact that with Arav, I never once had to wonder if I was safe. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I turned away. I need time, I whispered, to know if the truth changes anything. And with that I walked away, leaving him kneeling in the dark, his sobs echoing against the silence. But deep inside I already knew. The truth hadn't freed him. It had freed me. Confession. The night I walked away from him, my heart didn't feel lighter, but strangely it didn't feel heavier either. For the first time in years, I wasn't drowning in betrayal. I was simply breathing. And it was Arav who noticed the change first. He was waiting when I returned, pacing the porch, worry etched into every line of his face. You met him, didn't you? He asked softly, as if he already knew the answer. I nodded. I did. Silence fell, heavy but not suffocating. Arav didn't push, didn't demand. He just waited. So I said it. He wasn't the one who pushed me. A flicker of surprise crossed Arav's eyes, but he didn't gasp, didn't rage. He only sighed like the truth had been expected all along. But it doesn't change what I felt, I added quickly, my voice trembling. It doesn't erase the years of silence. The loss, the emptiness. Arav stepped closer, his presence warm and steady. And it shouldn't. What you went through, it was real. Pain doesn't vanish just because the details shift. His words cracked something inside me. My vision blurred, my chest ached. Before I knew it, tears were slipping down my cheeks. And Arav just held out his arms. Come here, he whispered. I collapsed into him. Against his chest, the sobs I had buried for years finally escaped. He didn't hush me. He didn't tell me to be strong. He simply held me like I was allowed to break. When my tears slowed, his hand tilted my chin up gently. His eyes searched mine, hesitant, raw. I need to tell you something, he murmured. My breath caught. I love you. The world stilled. I've loved you since the day you walked into my life, bloody and broken, but still standing tall, he confessed, voice shaking with sincerity. I tried to hide it because you weren't ready. Because I thought maybe you'd never be. But every time you laughed with me, every time you trusted me enough to fall asleep by my side, I fell harder, and I can't keep it inside anymore. My lips parted, but no words came. My heart hammered against my ribs, wild and terrified. Arav's hands trembled as they cupped my face. I don't want to replace him. I don't want to heal you just to claim you. I want to be the man who never lets you doubt where you belong. With me. Always with me. Tears welled again, but this time they weren't born of pain. I whispered, almost afraid to break the moment. You'll never hurt me. Never, he vowed, forehead pressing against mine. Even if the world turns against you, I'll be your shield. Always, and before doubt could creep in, before fear could whisper in my ear, I leaned up and kissed him, soft, trembling. A kiss that wasn't about passion, but about surrender. His breath hitched, his grip on me tightened, and when he kissed me back, it felt like the first sunrise after a lifetime of storm. That night, for the first time since I lost everything, I fell asleep not with scars in my heart, but with hope, and Arav's hand never let go of mine. Forever. The days after Arav's confession were different, not because the scars disappeared overnight, but because for once, I wasn't carrying them alone. He was there. When nightmares woke me at 3 a.m., he was there. When memories clawed at my chest, he was there. When I smiled without realizing, he was there too, beaming as if my happiness was his own. It was terrifying, and yet it was everything I had yearned for without daring to admit it. The final encounter. One afternoon, as I was locking the cafe we now ran together, he appeared. My ex. The man I once thought was my forever. He looked smaller somehow, thinner, guilt carved into his very skin. He handed me a file, proof that everything he'd said that night was true. The woman who had pushed me had been caught overseas for fraud, and her confession was recorded. She admitted it all, he whispered, eyes glassy. I never wanted you to bleed for my weakness. I'm sorry. I'll carry that regret to my grave. For a moment, silence hung between us. The old me might have lashed out. The old me might have clung to the pain. But instead I breathed deeply, and I said softly, I forgive you. His shoulders sagged. Tears spilled freely down his cheeks. But forgiveness, I added, is not an invitation back into my life. You were my past. Arav is my future. And for the first time in years, I meant it without hesitation. A new beginning. Months later, I stood in a simple mandap draped in white flowers. My hands trembled, not from fear but from joy, as Arav slipped a ring onto my finger. From this day forward, he whispered, voice steady despite the tears in his eyes, you will never stand alone. The crowd cheered, but all I saw was him. We sealed our vows with a kiss, gentle, certain, infinite. Epilogue. A family. A year later, the walls of our home echoed with new laughter. Our baby, our son, slept peacefully against Arav's chest, tiny fists curled around his shirt. I watched them from the doorway, my heart so full it almost hurt. Arav looked up, caught my gaze, and smiled that soft, steady smile that had become my anchor. We did it, he whispered. Yes, I said, walking over to rest my head on his shoulder. We really did. As our son stirred and whimpered, Arav rocked him gently, humming under his breath. I wrapped my arms around them both, breathing in the warmth, the love, the life we had built from ashes. I had once thought love meant pain, betrayal, and loss. But standing here with Arav and our child, I finally understood. Love, real love, meant forever.